Well, I'm delighted to say we are now joined by the Economic Secretary to the Treasury, that is Bim Afolami. Thank you so much for being with us. Your first time, I think, on the programme.
It is, yeah.
Huge deal for people in Northern Ireland. Is this a welcome move from the Prime Minister?
Hugely welcome. You know, as has already been said, Northern Ireland's been without a working assembly and executive for almost 2 years. And now, through the hard work of the Prime Minister and the Northern Ireland Secretary, Chris Heaton-Harris, who deserves a lot of credit for the work he's done working with all the parties in Northern Ireland, we now have an agreement that all of the parties from all of the different communities in Northern Ireland, that very complicated political part of the world, we've managed to get an agreement.
So is Brexit done?
Brexit was done, earlier on in this Parliament. But of course, you can always improve on whatever has been agreed between two countries, or indeed between the UK and the EU. And the Windsor Framework is a very good example of building on the success of the original Brexit deal, but building on that and doing so in a way that helps our relationship with the EU. And the Windsor Framework is really embedded in this new agreement in Northern Ireland.
We spoke to Mary Lou McDonald on the programme yesterday, the president of Sinn Féin. And of course, it's a historic moment for Northern Ireland, the first ever First Minister from Sinn Féin on that assembly. She said the days of a partitioned Ireland are numbered. Is she right? Is a united Ireland now an inevitability?
Look, I congratulate her on achieving the position, but she would say that, wouldn't she? Politics has not ended. But what has happened here is we now have a constitutional framework and a deal that everybody agrees with. And I agree with the Northern Ireland Secretary when he says, in his lifetime, and I hope in my lifetime as well, Northern Ireland will, I'm very confident, will be a fully functioning, integral member of the United Kingdom.
And now I'm keen to talk about your brief, the economy, something that is, of course, so important to our viewers as well. How would you describe the current state of the economy?
Getting better. We've turned a corner. COVID was hugely impacted on the economy and indeed in public finances.
It's not just the COVID, is it? Because I hear it all the time
I was getting there. Okay. Sophie. I mean, look, we've come from that position. Things are getting better. Inflation was 11%. Now it's below half that. Real wages are now, so that's the amount extra every year people are earning is now above inflation for the first time in a while. That's all done at the same time as bringing down our debt over the medium term, whilst also growing our economy. Now, that is not me saying everything's perfect. I know it's been really difficult. Cost of living is still impacting a lot of people in this country, indeed everybody, and I'm not complacent about that, neither is the Chancellor, but we have turned a corner and we stick with our plan and things will continue to get better.
You sound pretty confident. Not everyone shares that confidence, including the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. They're pretty worried about the state of the UK economy, and yesterday they warned the Chancellor against making any further tax cuts because of that debt burden that you were talking about as well, because of the spending squeeze that you've got pencilled in. Are they right? Is now not the time for cutting taxes?
Well, I don't agree with them, but let me explain why in detail I don't. The first point to make is that it's which taxes you cut and when. We have focused the taxes we've cut, and indeed the beginning, we're in the month where people are seeing...
Well, the tax bill's going up, isn't it? Let's be clear about that as well. You're not a tax-cutting government.
Well, we are, and people are seeing taxes being cut. National insurance, which is going to be worth about £450 to someone on the average salary, and a couple where both are on average salary, it's about £1,000, right? So this month we're starting to bring taxes down, but that tax is on work. Right? And we're bringing that tax down. Why does that matter? Because it means that we can get more people into work earning better wages. That really matters. So in terms of why the IMF is wrong, we're focusing our tax cuts on growing the economy and reducing the cost of living for ordinary people. You're
talking about what's already happened, what you've already decided. The IMF are looking ahead. They're looking at the budget. They're looking at the next year. And Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, is saying tonight to Robert Peston that he doesn't have much headroom for tax cuts. Is that right, or should we be hoping for, as many Conservatives would like to see, more tax cuts to come?
Well, I go back to what I was saying and saying that we are actually managing the economy very sensibly, reducing taxes where we can, particularly where they increase growth, but at the same time...
I'm trying to work out, the picture going forward. Would you like to see more tax cuts?
Of course. Of course we would like to see more tax cuts, but that has to be done in a framework that is sensible and keeps the public finances in a sensible state, brings our debt down. If you look at the Labour Party, their plan is to increase spending by 28 billion, increase debt or taxes by
well,
a huge amount.
They have said that they'll do that within the fiscal rules. As well as I do that actually looks like something that they've kind of pushed back, shall we say?
I'd urge you to question them a bit more closely on that. What I would say is their plan is reckless and unfunded. Ours is careful and will result both in tax cuts that will grow our economy. Most importantly, that will be done whilst bringing down our debt and funding public services properly as well. It's a balanced plan, and that's what we're sticking to.
Rachel Reeves today positioning herself as a champion of the city, if you like, saying that she wouldn't reinstate the cap on bankers' bonuses. I guess some people will be saying, consensus in this area isn't necessarily great. Everyone remembers the financial crash. Wouldn't it be good if at least one of the two sides was a bit more rigorous when it comes to the City of London?
Well, I'm a very strong supporter of the City of London, and since being appointed to this, indeed, it was what I worked in before coming into Parliament. And I think that the City of London should be championed for its excellence and for what it brings to this country in terms of contribution to the economy and to our tax revenues. But look, Rachel Reeves can say what she likes. Only a couple of months ago, she was saying that she was against the cap, and now she's in favour of it. You can't really know what their policy is because they don't have a plan. And that's the case in the City of London issue, that's the case in all areas of economic policy. And I just think that they have to really consider whether they've got the right ideas to take the country forward, because I don't think they're coming out with any.
I'm keen to talk about population. Population figures make a huge difference to forecasts in your department, of course. And yesterday, the ONS said that the UK population is projected to grow to 74 million by 2036. Is that a figure that you're comfortable with?
Well, it's difficult to know whether any particular number you can say that is the number the UK population should be at forever at any time. What's important is really the welfare of the people in our country.
So around 6 million of the population growth would be down to net migration. Is that a figure that you're comfortable with? Or?
Well, 6 million over what period of time?
By 2036, so just over a decade.
What, from now to then?
6 million more people...
Sorry, I just want to understand.
Yeah, exactly, 6 million added to the population through net migration between now and 2036.
Right, well, first of all, 2036 is a very long way away, and there's a lot that can happen in between then in terms of policy. But look, this is my view on migration. You've got to have a balance, right? Obviously, we do not want an immigration policy that is too loose, that lets in far too many people. But at the same time, we do need to fill the gaps in our skill shortages in our economy. That's why we have a points-based immigration system that only lets people in legally who satisfy certain very clear criteria. Now, when it comes to illegal migration, that's a completely different point. And indeed, you were talking about legal migration. But I do think that we need that sort of balance, because I don't think anybody says to me when I'm in Hitchin, in my constituency, or anywhere else in the country, people don't say, I don't want the doctor to come from abroad in my local GP surgery, or I don't want somebody to help in another area where we need people.
So you think it's too simplistic, basically, to talk about numbers in this way, do you think?
Well, I just think that, yes, we should be bringing immigration numbers down, and that's what we're committed to doing. But we're doing that in the context of growing the economy, improving wages for British people who are here already. And if we can do that whilst filling the skill shortages, but at the same time, making sure that our plans on improving skills and education in the country mean that over time we will skill more people up in those areas where we have gaps, more British people, then I think that that is the right policy for the medium and indeed longer term.
There was another thing I wanted to ask you about while I've got you, because I feel like we can see the battle lines, if you like, being drawn ahead of the next election, right? We know that it's going to be this year. Rishi Sunak's obviously a wealthy guy. He went to a prestigious school, and Labour are using that to say he's out of touch with ordinary families. Do you think that's an argument that is cutting through?
I don't think so, because I think ultimately the British people will look at the results. They'll look at, yes, who you are is relevant, but what is fundamental is what you're doing for the country and your plans and vision for the country. And I think the British people are fair, and I think they will consider not where someone's come from, but where they want to take the country forward. And I think that Rishi Sunak is clearly the man with a plan. He's clearly the man who's already delivered in tough circumstances. There's more to do, but if you compare that to where Labour is and Keir Starmer, flapping around all over the place on the economy, not being able to be honest with people about wages and taxes.
You've got the Labour attack lines in. You've done,
and I just think that when the country gets a chance to look at that and consider it seriously, they're going to give us a second look, and we can win that election.
Do you think there's an issue with the kind of class war that I guess we're seeing? You went to Eton yourself. Is that something that you feel like you're having to almost become a bit defensive about?
I'm not defensive about it because I hope to be treated in the way that anybody else hopes to be treated, which is by the content of my character and what I choose to put out as my ideas for the country and in the job that I'm doing at the moment, and be judged on that. And in the same way that I'm sure you would expect to be treated. And I think the British public is beyond this. You know, let's take Tony Blair, for example, who was a Labour Prime Minister for many years. You know, he went to a public school in Scotland and went to Oxford. I don't think that meant that he couldn't advocate for the things he believed in from a Labour perspective. I just think that it's a wrong argument. And I think that fundamentally, politics should be about your ideas, your character, and what you're trying to achieve, not about where someone's come from. I feel that quite strongly.
Do you think we're going to have a dirty election campaign then?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that from our side, at least, you know, we'll be playing the ideas, the ball, not the man.
When's it going to be? Go on, if you're going to hazard a guess.
The problem is, I don't know the answer to this question.
I know.
So,
it's a guess.
I mean, really,
it's a guess.
I really have no idea. What I can say is I think it'll be at some point in 2024.
OK, I think that is a very... I think I'm with you on that one.
No problem.
Thank you very much indeed, Bim Afolami there.